Anne here, and this is More Than a Love Interest, the show where we talk about the arcs of female characters in film. Today we are discussing Imperator Furiosa. We'll get into how the story shifts to be about her character arc, and how the politics of the film are baked into its structure. Let's get started.
We're heading east.
Forgive me for kicking things off by stating the obvious, but this movie is called Mad Max, in a series about Mad Max. However, he is not actually the main character here, and frankly, acts more like a deus ex machina than driving the story himself.
How much more can they take from me? I got my blood, now it's my car!
Not to say that he doesn't matter, he is hugely impactful. He goes from having one goal at the beginning,
Reduced to a single instinct. Survive.
to understanding Furiosa's need for redemption and perhaps finding a little himself by the end.
At least that way, we might be able to come across some kind of redemption.
Max's role in this movie is being the lens through which the story is told. They do an excellent job introducing our three leads so that we know they're all equally important.
Me. Or everyone else.
And there is one essential way in which our leads interact with this world and the story they are in: by driving.
By my deeds, I honor him. V8.
A microcosm of this can be seen in our villains. The Bullet Farmer and the People Eater do not drive. They have others drive for them. But Immortan Joe drives himself. He drives the plot at multiple points, twice predicting what Furiosa is planning to do.
Why would she do that, Dad? They're going back to the Citadel! They know it's undefended!
Reinforcing that he is the real villain here. Some of the war boys drive, of course, but mostly they all drive to the same place. So back to our heroes. Max drives in the opening scene, and his autonomy is stripped away when he crashes his car and cannot drive anymore. Our introduction to Furiosa is the wheel brand on her neck, then the same symbol on her steering wheel. And the story becomes about her when she changes course instead of doing what is expected.
Boss, we're not going to Gastown?
In universe, she's going against Immortan Joe, but metatextually, this is showing us that she will not be tagging along in Max's adventure. She will have her own.
It's a detour.
Nux is introduced literally fighting over the ability to steer the narrative,
That's my wheel! I'm driving!
and he has continued importance because he insists that the title character be tied to him.
We take my blood back! We take my blood back and strap into the Lancer's perch!
The steering wheel motif is heavy throughout and indicates both importance to the society in which they live and to the story as a whole. When Max tries to take back control to make this film about him again, it stalls out. Furiosa has put kill switches in place to ensure that
This rig goes nowhere without me.
he has to join her story, not the other way around. And then we get this scene where Furiosa has to negotiate with Max. All he wants to do is survive. How can she convince him to help? She doesn't promise him the green place or a trade of assets. She tries to appeal to his reason first,
You've already damaged one of his wives. How grateful do you think he's gonna be?
then to the desire to escape,
You're sitting on 2,000 horsepower of nitro-boosted war machine.
and then to him as a person.
You want that thing off your face?
And that's what works. Because that is what this movie is really about. As the wives say,
We are not things.
who gets to drive this story? Who gets to decide what counts as a person? The wives, Furiosa, the war boys, the mothers, Max, all of them have been used by Immortan Joe like they are resources at his disposal, no different from the guns or the cars. His symbol is a steering wheel because he is asserting his right to drive every aspect of this society. Max does not drive his car after the opening scene because this story isn't about him. Furiosa drives her rig, and when the time comes, she demonstrates how singular she is by fully trusting Max to be the one driving instead of her.
Red, black, go. You have it?
working together so that the rig and the story itself can keep going. Furiosa and Max have been reduced to being things here, but the wives and Nux have never known anything else, and they have to learn on the go. Best exemplified by Toast the Knowing, who tells Max,
"Don't damage the goods,"
before increasingly taking ownership of Furiosa's commands, figuring out the guns, and finally driving Immortan Joe's car herself after his death. But back to this confrontation. First, Immortan Joe attacks by attempting to remove the steering wheel to get things back under his control. Furiosa immediately prepares a makeshift wheel because she will not surrender control to him again. Hugely symbolic here. The other important thing is when Immortan Joe tries to kill Furiosa, trying to shoot from her blind spot. Splendid, the leader of the wives, puts herself in his way because she is the blind spot that will bring him down, and her death is at his hands. She went under his wheels.
She went under the wheels.
During this dark time, Nux tells Capable that
3 times the gates were opened to me.
he despairs of getting to do anything important because he has no steering wheel, no car, nothing to drive anymore.
I got to drive a pursuit vehicle.
But he wants to help, so when they get stuck, his part in the story continues because he can drive the rig.
I never thought I'd do something as shine as that.
And the point of view of the movie itself has shifted away from Max. He goes to take out the bullet farmer, but we don't go with him. We stay with Furiosa, Nux, and the rig. And when Max returns, he gives Nux a steering wheel. He is now truly part of the story and on the hero's side. Furiosa is back to driving the plot for the next few scenes. She tells Max about her backstory and their goal, her face free of grease, just like it was earlier when we got to know her.
Now that I drive a war rig, this is the best shot I'll ever have.
She leaves the driver's seat to talk to the Vuvolini, and this goes badly for her. I'll get into her character arc momentarily, but we witness this scene through Max's eyes because we are shifting back to his point of view. Furiosa offers him a bike to join them, giving him agency and direction, and he refuses the latter.
I'll make my own way.
Until the next morning, when he thinks about his own need for redemption instead of just survival. So he goes after them to tell Furiosa what she needs to hear.
At least that way, we might be able to come across some kind of redemption.
Now, it is often the case that having to turn back is an admission of failure.
Turn the rig around. Go back for her.
We keep moving!
A low point for our characters. But not here.
What are they saying?
He wants to go back from where they came.
Because the prevailing metaphor hasn't been moving forward, only that the characters are able to control where they're moving at all. That is what they are fighting for.
I suggest we go back the same way we came.
Feels like hope. I like this plan.
So they decide to return to the Citadel, and this time they are in control. The Vuvolini are paired up, yes, but they have control where they are going, unlike the War Boys. Max and Furiosa take turns in this fight to be the ones driving and taking control of the narrative. We also have some great parallel shots of them to reinforce their status as co-leads of this film. On the same vein, their vulnerabilities complement each other instead of making them weak. Furiosa catches Max using her prosthetic, and she catches his knee brace. The only reason this works is because her prosthetic arm is tied to her torso. Here it is literal, but this is how they work together both in-universe and out of it to succeed.
Together.
Max takes control of the people leader's car and could make this climax all about him. However, the wives beg him to help Furiosa again, and we see his character growth in immediately choosing to give up his place in the driver's seat.
She's hurt! She's hurt real bad!
Similarly, Furiosa then tells Nux to drive.
I'm gonna need you to drive. I'll get him out of our way.
Letting him choose his fate, while she takes care of Immortan Joe. Then, as I mentioned, it is Toast and Nux who get to drive out of here at the end. Toast to represent the new paradigm where they are more than things, and Nux to take charge of his life and decide what's worth dying for. Nux was brought up to desire death for his own glory, so he can go to Valhalla, and he ends the movie deciding to die for selfless reasons instead, to ensure the future of his society can be better than it was while he was alive.
When you're across safe, I'll jam the throttle and follow you.
Rictus attacks the rig in a way that allows Nux to stay in the driver's seat, to be the driving force in how this whole story ends. And the shot lingers on Immortan Joe's wheel being removed and useless, emphasizing that his control is truly over. Max is our title character, and his contributions to the plot are essential, but it's not really about him. It's about how Furiosa, the wives, and then Nux take control of their own lives and assert the idea that
We are not things!
Max gets a taste of losing his agency, of what it would be like to live under Immortan Joe's thumb, and that drives him to get involved. Because there is more to life than surviving, after all.
Kind of redemption.
Immortan Joe might claim that he was providing a service for these people, allowing so many to survive as long as they served their purpose. But survival is not the same as living, and that's what Max learns in this movie. The reason he has to lose control is so he can witness Furiosa and her people demand more from their existence, no matter the cost. And it leads him to do the same.
Max. My name is Max.
So let's get into how Furiosa's character arc is structured for both his benefit and hers. The structure of Fury Road is masterfully simple. We journey out, we fail, we go back. And the heroine's journey is, after all, a circle. So let's see how it matches up with Furiosa's journey, seeking a better future.
You having a baby?
Warlord Jr.
The first step of the heroine's journey is to separate from the feminine. Now, obviously, Furiosa is separated from a distinctly feminine place when we meet her.
I was taken as a child.
However, since she manages to return there not halfway through the film,
But if you came from the West, you passed it.
it's clearly not the starting and ending of this journey. Instead, it is separating from the Citadel itself. And more specifically, it is right here. She is at first still Imperator Furiosa, still giving orders that are accepted with few questions.
We're heading east.
I'll pass it down the line.
But once Immortan Joe guesses what she might be doing and goes after her, she's committed to the separation.
We bang it!
It means leaving behind an oasis in an endless desert, but it's worth it to ensure a better future for herself, the wives, and their children.
She didn't take them, they begged her to go!
When Furiosa first sets out, she has several masculine allies with her.
We are war boys! Come on, crazy war boy!
In fact, it is unlikely she and the wives could have left without this escort. So these war boys might turn against her when they realize she's not on the level, but they are instrumental in the first steps of the journey.
Heading east. Why? I don't know. That's the order.
Next, of course, we have Max, whom we've already discussed. He is an essential ally throughout the film, especially at a later step of her journey, but there are many scrapes she would not have gotten through without his help.
When I yell fool, you drive out of here as fast as you can.
And the last ally is Nux, though he has to go through some of his own character development before he does anything to help.
I thought I was being spared for something great.
Then he proves to be an essential ally who also gives hope for the kind of future the Citadel might have. Furiosa's road of trials are fairly literal. It's everything that leads up to finally escaping their pursuers. Her masculine allies help repel the buzzards. Max shows up and is at first another obstacle, but then she recruits him to be on their side.
You want that thing off your face?
Same goes for Nux, until they all escape together.
I can do this. I know this machine.
The illusion of success comes from here, when they have at last gotten away from their pursuers. Nux and Max have helped them when they got stuck in the bog, so things are looking good. And then they find this woman, and Furiosa is reunited with her people at last.
This is our Furiosa.
Except, of course, things aren't as she hoped they would be. So next we have spiritual aridity in one of the most memorable and beautiful shots in the film. Furiosa threw away her presumably fairly cushy life in the Citadel, risking it all to bring these women to a safe feminine place.
Do you think he's coming to the green place?
Never.
All of them were better off, at least in the physical sense, when they were enslaved by Immortan Joe.
Out here, everything hurts.
Is it worth being free if their chances of survival have dropped this significantly?
Stay right where you are, little Joe. Kinda lost its novelty out here.
They will decide the answer is yes. But true to how the journey is structured, this moment of despair comes from the fact that the original separation from the feminine has not yielded any results.
The many mothers.
We're the only ones left.
The next step is the descent, where the woman digs down deep to find new resolve. Unfortunately, this section of the movie is mostly from Max's point of view, so we see Furiosa explain the plan to Max, but not the process that went into making it.
We're never gonna have a better chance to make it across the salt.
And that is a shame, because that's the descent for Furiosa. She may have been devastated by the result of leaving the Citadel, but she has rejoined the many mothers after all and left the dystopian horror show back there. The wives may have lost their leader, but they join Furiosa and the mothers. And the group decides that there is nothing for them here, so it's time to try to cross the salt, to find out what there might be across the vast expanse of nothing.
One of those bikes is yours.
The next step is to urgently yearn to reconnect to the feminine. Furiosa and her group are committed to crossing the salt until their masculine ally Max shows up.
This is your way home.
He understands Furiosa's driving motivation and the need to keep moving to survive, but he offers something else, the opportunity to live instead of just surviving.
You might be able to come across some kind of redemption.
The green place is gone, but did they not come from a green place? With underground caves and pools, abundant water, the feminine from which she's been separated.
What's there to find at the Citadel?
Green.
And water.
Well, that's worth urgently yearning for, and they make the plan to take it back.
Shut it off behind us.
Kaboom.
Healing what's been broken is needed for the following steps. For this one, Furiosa heals the mother-daughter split.
If you can't fix what's broken, you'll go insane.
Now, she has already done this in the literal sense by reuniting with the many mothers, but it's time to take that a step further, to join up with them and revolutionize their society.
We can start again. Just like the old days.
So the men and women in the Citadel are not branded and put to use, and so those outside no longer need to be kept apart.
And because he owns it, he owns all of us.
I don't like him already.
The climax of the movie ensues, and Furiosa goes through a lot with her allies, both masculine and feminine, and they all have to work together so that she can cut out what was most destructive to their society.
I'll get him out of our way.
And allow them to actually go home and heal the split.
Remember me?
The next step is to heal the masculine, and here we have a very unique representation of that. Furiosa and Max work in tandem throughout the climax of the film and show how much they have in common. She gets her revenge and her redemption, but at great cost.
She's collapsing her lungs, one breath at a time.
Fortunately, Max is a universal donor, and he heals her, offering his name at the same time as his blood,
My name is Max.
allowing her to truly make peace with the masculine. Furiosa is in rough shape when they return to the Citadel, but the integration of the masculine and the feminine is already happening. Nux proved his ability to learn, to go from seeking death for glory to sacrificing himself for the future generations. The wives also learned to seek a future for themselves and their children, rather than just fleeing for possibly selfish reasons.
We're going to the green place of many mothers.
Comparing our introduction to this society with the final scenes, it's clear that a revolution has occurred, and Furiosa is the architect of it. She has created a new green place. Overall, Furiosa's journey is incredible. In spite of the genre and the name of the film, she is certainly the protagonist, and it is her character arc that defines the structure of the story. I honestly can't think of a better one. Furiosa fights for a better future for herself, and then decides to do the same for everyone around her. Truly an excellent role model to the wives and then the rest of her society.
And them?
They're looking for hope.
So let's get into something that really sets this film apart, how its claims about the world are built into it. Now to wrap up this video, I'm gonna dig into the politics of this movie.
That's bait.
One message we've already discussed is that mere survival is not enough. You must fight for a place you can thrive. However, we the audience can and should learn more than that here. But first, I just want to say that I tend not to be a huge fan of dystopian stories or even science fiction in general, and it's not that I don't enjoy the exploration of those topics, it's the fact that these stories tend to treat women as set dressing.
Splendid. And Harrod.
And specifically because making something dark and gritty to show you how bad the setting or the characters are apparently means that we have to know that women are suffering there.
They begged her to go!
The anti-hero is broody and morally dubious because of his dead wife and kids. The villain's plans are shocking and serious because he tortures a woman the hero knows. The incredible advancements in technology are worth exploring because they brutalize women. And I don't avoid these genres because these concepts are bad in and of themselves. I really hate the current trend of describing media as just a list of what occurs, as if the context and presentation are meaningless.
Get it out. Get it out.
My problem with these tropes is not their content, what literally happens, it's how prevalent they are in this genre while being so unexamined. The women suffering in these stories are an afterthought. They are usually barely featured and often only exist at all to emphasize how rough things are, rather than for us to empathize with them in this situation. It's basically fridging on a larger scale.
Whatever happens, we're going to the green place.
So let's look at how Fury Road measures up.
Your girl is breathing her last.
This dystopia features scraping for survival on what little water this god king deigns to give you. If you're a woman, you may be plucked from obscurity to instead be imprisoned and regularly assaulted by an old man trying to impregnate you. Or you might be treated like livestock with only a baby doll for company. Then, as the movie gets started, you and the other breeding stock escape, only to be regularly attacked. The hero of this film shoots at the most heavily pregnant among you, and she's later killed by the man chasing you, but only after they cut out the baby. Then the one hope you had in life is torn away, and you find that the promised land of many mothers has gone bad, with only a few of them still alive. In the final battle, you and the other women are blinded, stabbed, run over, and also just shot. That all sounds pretty terrible, but this is one of the most sympathetic and nuanced portrayals of women that I've ever seen. So let's get into why the context and presentation really matter here.
Thought somehow you girls were above all that.
The first thing, as discussed in this linked post, is how the women are framed.
Compositionally, whatever was the center point of that shot had to be in the center of the frame.
The rule of thirds is a way to compose visual images in order to draw the eye where you want. It's a good rule, but it can emphasize male gaze in an unfortunate way. A woman being framed using this might draw your eye to her face and bust, or bust and hips, suggesting that these are the most important things about her, which proportionally is not how men are usually framed.
You'll break them.
Natasha, I'm so sorry that horrible man filmed you like that.
I had this, dream that I was an Avenger.
Anyway, Mad Max Fury Road does not follow the rule of thirds. They were very careful with tracking the eye line, and that includes making sure everything important is front and center. This scene of scantily clad women playing in water emphasizes only two things: the water itself and her belly. The first is what Max currently wants, and the second is the catalyst for the entire plot.
We're going to the green place of many mothers.
The women are treated by the camera as people, and that's a pretty big deal given that they are breeding stock, something that could easily have been an excuse to show off their bodies. But we always keep the action in the center of the frame, and how they look is not important to the action.
Oh, look at them. So shiny, so
So chrome.
Second, the way Max is moved into the story. He is an outsider, but he suffers the same fate, being reduced to just a thing.
We take my blood back! We take my blood back and strap him to the Lancer's perch!
In fact, that puts him on the same level as the wives, more than Nux or Furiosa. Both of them have some agency here. They're shown driving, while he is muzzled and strapped to the car, imprisoned, so that his body can be used for one purpose, just like the wives.
High-octane crazy blood filling me up!
Putting our male protagonist in the same boat as the most vulnerable women is quite a strong statement to make.
How much more can they take from me?
And certainly helps us to empathize with them instead of seeing them as just victims to be rescued.
You don't have to do it just because he tells you. What choice does she have?
Third, most popular movies are structured to have something big happen at the hour mark, to keep you awake and to determine the stakes for the rest of the film. And while we do have a confrontation with Joe, what actually is occurring an hour in is this. We've had a lot of action so far, but now we're getting to know our protagonists.
There's no going back!
The original tension of where this baby will be born is moot, so now we need to find out what will motivate our remaining characters.
They were her words! And now she's dead!
We get to know the women more individually. We have more Furiosa trusting Max, and this is all great character work and is what will make the ending impactful, because we care about these people.
We need inventory. I want you to match every gun with its bullets.
We've only got 4 for Big Boy here, so he's all but useless.
Angharad used to call them anti-seed. Plant one and watch something die.
I'll go.
No. I want you to stay together.
I can do it. What are you doing here?
He saw it.
It also sets up arcs for the remaining women, who cannot just follow Angharad anymore. Cheeto the Fragile loses faith, but she will be instrumental in the climax by using that as a ruse to help Furiosa get across to take out Joe.
He'll forgive us! I know he will! Princess! Take me! What are you doing?
Capable was shown to be compassionate, and we see more of that with Nux.
I should be walking with the immortal, no feasting with the heroes full time.
I'd say it was your manifest destiny not to.
Which will cause him to decide what his death can accomplish. Toast the Knowing goes from
Don't damage the goods
to keeping track of their resources and driving Joe's vehicle herself in the end.
We can squirt off this little pinky raunchy 29 times. There's a ridiculous amount of clear water. And a lot of crops.
The Dag has the clearest sight of the future.
Angharad, is that just the wind? Or is that a furious vexation?
Say, anyone notice that bright light? Encroaching gunfire?
Do you think he's coming to the green place?
Never.
And she comes to be carrying the future herself, in the form of the seeds and her child.
You having a baby?
Warlord Jr.
Could be a girl.
Seeds.
Heirlooms. The real thing.
Now we have good reasons to keep rooting for our protagonists, to see if they can get what they want in the end. And they will, not just because they are the main characters, but because of the message it sends by ensuring this guy loses while these people win.
My property!
Fourth, the plot of the whole movie is built around Angharad's question.
And who killed the world?
We are in a horrible dystopia, yes, but how did it get that way? And more importantly, what keeps it that way? It's a rhetorical question because we should be able to discern the answer based on our introduction to this world. At the beginning, we see men and women both used as resources of less value than the gasoline or the bullets. The war boys idolize violence and death.
Come on, crazy war boy!
War boy! You can't stand up, you can't do war!
You're already a corpse.
If I'm gonna die historic on the Fury Road.
The women are just livestock, being milked or literally kept in a vault. Immortan Joe may say this specifically about his unborn child.
That's my child! My property!
But that's how he considers everything, and everyone. Dictators like him often appear as villains in fiction, and it's not that deep. But it's not just his need for control or wasting of lives that ensures he's the bad guy here. This is supposed to make a statement. His role is to show us what killed the world. Wars over gasoline.
Why are you hurting these people? It's the oil, stupid.
we send off my war rig to bring back gasoline from Gastown.
Powerful people controlling water.
There's the water wars.
Do not, my friends, become addicted to water.
Idolizing violence and anti-seed instead of protecting life.
And bullets from the bullet farm.
Women treated like livestock.
She took a lot of stuff from me, Morton Joe.
What stuff?
Breeders. He's prized breeders.
And men taught to revere their own destruction.
You will ride eternal, shiny and chrome.
But Immortan Joe is not doing this alone. This man is called the People Eater because he is
coming to count the cost.
He keeps the inventory.
30,000 units of gasoline, 19 canisters of nitro, 12 assault bikes, 7 pursuit vehicles.
And you might notice that the number of war boys lost is not a relevant part of his bookkeeping. Whether his name is literal or not doesn't matter. The people are consumed because all he cares about is the bottom line.
But deficit mounts and now.
So as long as they save the gasoline, the water, the milk, he doesn't care how many people were used or lost in the process.
Be careful! Protect the assets!
And the bullet farmer is worse. As the owner of all of that anti-seed, he openly scoffs at the idea of caring about the future generation.
All this for a family squabble. Healthy babies.
Because he is a merchant of death and he's lost sight of what is actually important. Then literally loses his sight because this movie is not subtle. He praises the manufacturers of his guns while he shoots indiscriminately, going against what both Immortan Joe and the People Eater told him.
Wouldn't want to shoot the wife, sir. Just probing.
Don't they know they're shooting at us?
The charismatic cult leader and the businessman can't control the violence they've unleashed. These villains are in contrast to our heroes, who seek out the green place and the many mothers of the Vuvolini.
We're going to the green place of many mothers.
They collect real seeds and have hope for a different future for their children.
Back then, everyone had their fill. Back then, there was no need to snap anybody.
Their vehicles allow for personal choice. They work together instead of following a single leader. They accept anyone who wants to help.
The men, who are they? They're reliable. They helped us get here.
Overall, the film is not saying that femininity is better than masculinity. It's saying that tying masculinity to violence and teaching young men that their only purpose is to die for a cause is what kills the world. Commodifying femininity, separating women out by their usefulness as breeders or providers of milk, or leaving them to die is what kills the world. Valuing assets over people and farming bullets instead of food is what kills the world.
The soil.
We had to get out.
We had no water, and
The water was filth.
it was poisoned. It was sour.
It's not that Immortan Joe himself killed the world, but he reinforces the ideas that did. Ideas that Furiosa opposes. The two are set up in contrast throughout the film. At the start, both are in disguise. Furiosa wears his mark and is ostensibly doing his bidding with half her face covered in grease, while Joe is a dying old man, dressed in a facade of virulent masculinity in a place of power. His armor is literally see-through. The Emperor is not wearing any clothes. As the movie progresses, he is unable to see past his blind spots and cannot adapt to any real test of his masculinity or power because they are not real. Everything depends on maintaining the facade. All his people must adhere to his purpose and do as they're told because otherwise his control will slip and so will his mask. While she is happy to remove her disguise, to be her real self, and because she's no longer stuck in this rigid societal structure, she can think quickly, make new allies, and teach the wives how to help her and themselves. She taps into people's potential by reinforcing that they are more than just things.
Not without them.
What's your name?
All she wants in this movie is freedom for herself and those around her, to be able to move beyond mere survival into living and thriving.
I can't wait for them to see it.
All he wants in this movie is to ensure his legacy, to have a healthy son to take on his mantle of God King and keep everything as it is.
It's gone awful quiet in there.
Get it out. Get it out!
To protect the idea of freedom, Furiosa will leave behind everything she's known, push to the edge of her endurance, and deeply mourn her losses. Those who go with her do so of their own free will, and all she can promise is a path that might lead to prosperity, but it's enough.
She didn't take them, they begged her to go!
I can maybe ride for 160 days. One of those bikes is yours.
To protect his idea of legacy, Joe will call up all the forces he can muster, waste assets without blinking, and mourn only the loss of a son. Those who go with him do so because he has control over them, and he offers them nothing at all, only a grand death.
I myself will carry you to the gates of Valhalla.
So it ends up that her legacy is to change the Citadel into a true green place, where things can grow and flourish. While his legacy is to be treated in death the way he treated people in life, just used for parts. This quote from Miss Giddy really sums up what the movie is about.
You cannot own a human being. Sooner or later, someone pushes back.
And the film is structured to reinforce that idea. Everyone gets a chance to drive, to make a difference in the plot, because reducing people to things is not sustainable. And the female characters are treated no differently by the movie itself than the male characters. We see that their experiences are not exactly the same, but they are fighting for the same things.
That's why we have his logo seen on our backs.
The character of Furiosa is so exciting to me because for much of the movie, she is essentially genderless. Like Ripley in Alien, the fact that she's female doesn't matter in how she appears on the screen, what she can do, or how she impacts the plot.
This rig goes nowhere without me.
But then it gets better. Of course her sex would impact how she would see the wives, and her background is what allows her to see that this world is unjust and must be resisted. She goes to the many mothers to escape the dystopia run by a god king. But the point isn't that she needs to flee back into femininity. Instead, she brings it with her to break his stranglehold because it controls everyone here, regardless of their gender. Being a woman is essential to her story. You can't just gender swap her, but being a woman is not allowed to impact how she is represented on screen. She has an excellent arc. We see her convictions and her vulnerabilities, and she's one of the most fully fleshed out female characters that I've ever seen.
Don't breathe.
So is Furiosa more than a love interest? Or a damsel in distress? Well, yeah, of course. She is proactive, and Max joins up with her story, not the other way around. Even the wives aren't damsels for long and show what they can do to contribute. The moral of the story is to treat people as human beings, and the very fabric of the film ensures that for every character. Furiosa is really the protagonist here, and that's why it's one of my favorite movies.
This is our Furiosa.
Thank you for listening to me talk about Imperator Furiosa. Next time, we'll talk about our first Pixar princess, Merida.
I suppose a princess just does what she's told.
Please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, join my Patreon, buy me a coffee, all the things so you don't miss it. See you then.